Good evening, viewers, and welcome to our live webcast tonight. You have just been watching some nice lighting design images. The design was made by Jose Bermudez from KYO Productions Design in Miami, I believe, or Florida at least. If you are interested in capture training, then said KYO are also just about to organize a basic training in Spanish. So if your Spanish is good, then here's a great chance for a training in capture. We should be posting a link in the chat right about now, or otherwise we'll post it later as well in the description of the video as well. So KYO are hosting a basic training in capture in Spanish. I believe it starts tomorrow or happens tomorrow. If you follow the link, you can sign up to participate. There's also going to be a competition involved where you can win some prizes, including you can win one, but there are 2 Capture Solo licenses up for grabs, along with other prizes. One of the capture licenses has been sponsored by us and the other by Elation, our US dealers who support this training. So don't miss that if your Spanish is good. Moving on, in the news segment, we have an update regarding some of the issues we've had on Mac OS since the release of Capture 2020. We have just had it confirmed that one of the major has been resolved. This is thanks to a new Xcode. This is part of the software package from Apple we used to publish, I guess, the software, where they have fixed some things, which means that Capture now runs smoothly on Intel GPUs on Mac OS. And as a result of that, that pesky little warning window that used to pop up on an Intel Mac no longer pops up. And we have updated the web page with known issues on Mac OS, where at the moment the only known issues remaining are with NVIDIA cards and the Navi AMD GPU series, that is the 5500 or 5700 series cards, where there are still some timing issues that we are hoping Apple will soon resolve. However, tonight we have a much sought after training, I guess, or walkthrough on DMX controlled cameras. As usual, you are welcome with your questions at any point throughout the webcast. If you have questions that are not related to the theme, the DMX controlled cameras, then please write them well in advance anyway, and I'll try and cover them at the end of the webcast. So all questions welcome. Questions on DMX controlled cameras will be covered right away, and other questions will be saved for later. One of the reasons I ask you to post well in advance is that there is a little bit of a delay here, so it's good if we can have the questions as early as possible. And I've just seen that we don't have any questions yet, so come on. So let's jump straight into the theme we have here tonight. We are going to take a look at controlling cameras with DMX. And I have a project file here that you might be familiar with by now. We try to make minor changes every now and then in the file, so as not to bore you too much, but it's still the Chateau file. So, DMX controlled cameras. Why would you do this? Well, I could think of a number of reasons. One is as you are pre-programming the show with your lighting console, you want to see the stage from different angles. So you could have preset buttons or whatever they might be called on your lighting console, where you can press and quickly jump between different camera positions in the visualization. If you are creating a presentation file with Capture, if you're exporting a presentation and you want to pre-record different snapshots from different positions, then a great way to do that is to patch the camera to DMX and record the camera position along with the snapshots. Actually, it's the only way to do that, apart from a hack, which I might teach you. Another good use for DMX controlled cameras is if you want to do sort of camera tracks, or if you want to create shots where the camera is moving along with the music or whatever you have in your lighting design to create some dynamic imagery. Both live when viewing the visualization, of course, but also recording them in snapshots so that you can render out the movie file with a camera, moving cameras, basically. So we can use this both to jump between positions and create motion. So let's take a look at actually doing that. I have in the project file here, and in all project files, we have 3 views, and each view has its own camera. So we can actually patch the camera of each view individually, but I am only going to be patching the camera of the alpha view here. We do that by going to the Views category in the Design tab, scroll down a little bit, and then at the bottom you will find the control group where you have patch, patch mode, and patch precision. Now these properties repeat once per view, and as I said, we will be working with the alpha view, so we will be working with the properties in the first column here labeled alpha view. Now, to patch the view on DMX is pretty simple, but there's a few things we should check first. Number 1 is which DMX address are we going to patch the camera on. So we do need a free space to patch the camera on. Now, in this project file, I don't have a lot of DMX channels used on Universe A. In fact, I only use the first 40 channels. So free space starts at channel 41 on Universe 1. So let's use that. Go back to the Views category, scroll down to Control and Patch. So here I'm going to type 1.41, which was the first DMX channel. What happened now was that the alpha view went blank. And the reason for that is that now the camera has been patched here on channel 41. So this universe is already filled with all 0 DMX values. So we've already sent the camera somewhere in the universe where there is nothing to see. So now we need to get some DMX into Capture, which tells the camera to go to a meaningful place. The way I'm going to do that tonight is by using LSC's Clarity software. Now, I could have shown this with any of a number of different lighting console softwares. And what is important here, of course, is the principles and not which software you are using. I imagine everyone is not familiar with this software, and the point, of course, is not to teach you the Clarity software tonight. But as in any lighting console, really, we need to patch something in order to control it. So I have prepared for the purpose a couple of personalities that we can patch. So I've got a capture camera in standard or extended mode that I can drag and drop in here, and I will drop it on channel 41 and patch. So what happened now was that the screen is no longer black because we have moved the camera to a meaningful position. And if I go into the programmer of this console and select the camera, I now have the ability to control the X, Y, and Z position of the camera. Now, it may be that in your lighting console's library, there isn't already a capture camera available. So I want to show you in the capture manual where you would find the information you need to create the personality or request it from your console manufacturer. So in the manual, if you go down to the appendix, chapter 17, we have some DMX tables. And here, it starts with the camera DMX tables. There are others as well, but we're focusing on the cameras tonight. So we have here a channel listing. Let me zoom out a little bit. So the capture camera has a standard and an extended mode. The extended mode has a couple of extra channels at the end, whereas the basic modes has 18 DMX channels. The first 6 channels are X, Y, and Z positioning of the camera. So these are 3 16-bit parameters. Next comes pan, tilt, and pitch. That is the rotation of the camera. Again, there are 3 16-bit channels that control that, followed by another 3 16-bit channels which are field of view, which is basically zooming. There is ambient, which is the ambient lighting level, and finally exposure, which is, well, it's the exposure or the brightness, I guess some might call it as well. So if we check out the universe view in Capture and select our camera here, these are the channels we see here. So it starts with X course, there's pan, tilt, pitch, field of view, and so on. And as I'm using the console, controlling these parameters, we see the DMX values updating and the camera moving in Capture. So far, so good. Again, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat and I will try to cover them right away if I can, or at the end of the webcast. So we've got the basics set up now. Something else I would like to point out is that you can also use the other views in order to understand what the camera is doing. As you may know, you can select fixtures in the universe view in Capture, and you can select the camera from here as well. So as I click on the camera in the channels view, you see the camera being selected, highlighted in the other views, and you also see this green strut here, which indicates the field of view of the camera. And if I move or rotate the camera from the console, you see this updating in all of the views. So this can be a great help to understand what is going on as you're programming the camera. So let's make a basic example here and record a couple of camera positions. Let's start with a shot from the left from a little bit further away, and then another one, a shot from the right, which is a little bit closer to the actors. So let's bring on a little bit of lighting, maybe a little bit of front light and a bit of backlight. Let's go back to the camera control. Now, as I mentioned, we have an ambient channel, which is unfortunately called background level in Clarity here. But you can see it controls the ambient lighting level of the view. So let's turn that all off, since we have our own fixtures and are not relying on the sun here. There is also a zoom channel, which is the field of view of the camera. So you can see here that with a narrow field of view, the camera strut is, well, narrow, whereas with a wide field of view, the camera strut is very wide. Another way of achieving zoom could be by moving the camera closer to the thing you are focused on, but this can be a bit tricky, so it's usually easier to work with the field of view. And finally, the exposure setting, labeled gain here in the software. This corresponds to the exposure setting that you have right here along the view properties. Now, it works both with automatic exposure on or off. So it's actually the exposure adjustment that you're controlling here. I'm going to set it to non-automatic exposure here in order to take full control of the exposure of the camera. So let's start with a shot a little bit further away. Let's move to the left, and if I can remember the keyboard key for fine movement, which I absolutely cannot at the moment. Let's move out a little bit, tilt down, and maybe zoom in a bit. So this could be camera shot number 1. I'll record that into a new cue list. Next, let's move the camera in to the right side a bit. So let's start with resetting the zoom because we are still relatively far out here. Let's move the camera in. That would be along the z-axis. Use the x-axis to get to the right side. Let's rotate a bit. This would be easier if I had jog wheels on an actual console rather than in this interface, but I want you to see what I'm doing, so that's how I justify the somewhat tricky situation I put myself in. So this could be our close shot. You can see the camera is virtually on stage now. So we can use this one to record the second camera position. Now, if I clear the programmer in the console, the camera resets back to that neutral position. And I did record the DMX levels of the fixtures along with it, so we got a blackout as well, which I hadn't quite planned for, but okay. Let's go to the control booth and grab that cue list. I wish I could make this window a bit smaller now, so I'll just place it behind myself. Anyway, we now have 2 cues in the cue list that we can jump between. Of course, I could set a different crossfade time here. We've got 2 seconds at the moment, so let's increase that to 6 seconds to create a slower transition. Now in this case, we've only got 2 points that we are jumping between. If you wanted a more elaborate movement, you might choose several points in between that you are fading through, I guess. And of course, we can clear the fade time if we want to achieve the instant jumping that I mentioned before. So I have a question here. We need to be precise simulating field of view from the cameras used. How can we go above 90 degrees in the vertical? So at the moment, let's locate the field of view. At the moment, we're at 13 degrees here. So let's keep that cue in the programmer and grab the zoom. Now this doesn't update live, so I have to click here with the mouse to get it to update. So the maximum field of view is 90 degrees with DMX control, and the minimum field of view with DMX control is 5 degrees. And that is really the range available from DMX. There is no way around that, actually. And I imagine there is the only way of getting feedback of what the degrees actually are is either to look in capture like I'm doing now, or if the fixture personality in your console shows the value. Now in my case, it just says 0 to 100%. Because that's how I created the personality, but you could easily have the console say 5 to 90 degrees. It's a perfectly linear transition, so just as going from dimmer level 0 to 100, we are going from 5 to 90. That should be possible to set up in any console, really. I could mention that we are making some improvements to all of these bits for Capture 2021, actually, with more configurability and more access to the preciser information that you're asking for here. But in Capture 2020, this is what we have available to us. Now, here I have recorded the DMX positions or the camera positions inside the console, so in the lighting console. So if I were to disconnect the lighting console and go somewhere else with my laptop, I would not have access to the camera positions here and now. So the way to do that, let's clear the programmer and go back to the playback controls. Control booth. So we have two camera positions. Now, one thing I could do in Capture is use the camera menu to record camera positions as well. I could record this as being, so store camera position 1. Then I can jump to the other position and say store camera position 2. Now I'm able to jump between these positions in Capture. The difference being, though, that when doing this in Capture, we're not recording the field of view. So now that I jump back to camera position 1, I've still got the field of view of camera position 2. So recording camera positions in Capture does not include the field of view, the ambient lighting level, or the exposure level. And same thing goes when recording snapshots. So this is camera position 1. Let's record a snapshot here, a still snapshot, position 1. Let's jump to the other camera position and record that. That would be position 2. Now as I play back these snapshots, we're in the same situation again, that the only thing recorded is the camera position and angle. The fact that it says camera here in the column where it also says DMX is an indication that we have camera position information. The other two snapshots here do not have camera position information because the camera was not patched as I was recording those snapshots. And I mentioned before there was a trick for recording camera positions, and that is, as long as the camera is patched, when you record a snapshot, the camera position is recorded, regardless of whether you actually have a console transmitting any DMX values. So if you want to include the camera position in a snapshot, all you need to do really is make sure the camera is patched. Not elegant, but a neat trick in case you were not aware of that. Now, some might be worried that if the camera is patched, it would instantly jump back to its home position as long as there is DMX coming in. But in fact, this does not happen. The camera only reacts to DMX changes in its channels. So if you patch the camera somewhere where it remains all zeros, then you can use the camera controls in Capture and run your lighting cues without affecting the camera position. All right. Something else I also want to show you. So far we've only done stills really, and we've had the lighting console move the camera around. Let's also record a movie snapshot. So I'm going to increase the fade time to 10 seconds, which means when I hit go, we have a 10-second movement between the two camera positions. Now, because I only have one user interface here, what I'm going to do next is hit the record button and start a movie recording. But just before I do that, I also want to hit the go button on the console so that we start moving the camera. So I do that there and hit record here. So now we've started recording a movie snapshot while the DMX values are moving the camera. Now it's stopped, so I will stop the recording. So now we have a motion here. And I can play back this snapshot to see the camera motion. Again, we changed the field of view here, which isn't recorded, so we're only seeing the camera position changing, which we're fixing in Capture 2021. So to summarize a little bit, we have the ability to record camera positions in the lighting console and play it back from there. We have the ability to record camera positions from the camera menus and play them back from there. And we can include camera positions in snapshots and play them back from there. Now, a few more advanced aspects to this that I do want to cover today is, number one is we have recorded camera positions in these snapshots, but they are not specific to a view. And this is important to understand because I could have patched the gamma view and recorded different camera positions with the gamma view, but then when you render a movie, this is something that a few people have asked how this works. So let's render a movie to the desktop. Let's call it motion. We get a choice here that says base on view. Now, even though I might have recorded my camera positions in the gamma view, I can still render my movie based on the alpha view, and the camera positions will be equally valid. Now, I recorded with the alpha view patched, so I'm going to turn it around, switch the the gamma view to be live. I hope this isn't too confusing, but I think for those people who have asked about this, they will understand exactly what's going on here. So I'm going to render the movie based on the gamma view, despite originally having had the alpha view patched. So I can render this out. It's probably going to take more time than I wish. And now I'm getting the weird feeling that maybe I'm wrong, which might be disastrous. So I'm going to hit cancel here and see what we got out. Boy, this would be embarrassing. It probably is. Yeah, it is. Is there a problem? So never mind all that. Actually, I was wrong. It is important that you patch the camera in the view that you use for the rendering, and I'm gonna have to check why on earth this is the case. I thought it was not, but this happens. So let's render with the alpha view then, so that we do get the motion as intended. Let's render this one. Let's call it motion 2, or the movie where we actually get some motion. Let's use the alpha view. I must be having some kind of brain malfunction here because the camera doesn't seem to be moving in the alpha view either. So let's see what we got this time. Yeah, okay, yeah, here it is. So we have camera movement when rendering in the alpha view where the camera was in fact patched. I think I'm starting to remember what I got wrong here. There is also a case of controlling the camera using a 3D mouse, in which case the camera isn't actually patched to DMX, but we are still recording camera positions which are agnostic to a view, but that's a whole different special topic, so I'll just pretend that never happened. Something else I would like to show you are the other patch mode that is available in the camera. So if we take a look at the patch options we have here, apart from the DMX address the camera is patched to, there is also a patch mode with a choice of the standard or extended mode, as well as 2 old legacy modes from older versions of Capture. And there is a precision option. The default choice is centimeters, which means we can move the camera in increments of centimeters. So each DMX step is 1 centimeter. But there is also a excuse me, a decimeters option for cases where you have very large environments where you need to move the camera more than 650 meters. But what I want to show you is the extended mode here. So I'm going to switch the camera over to the extended patch mode, which means the camera now uses 2 extra DMX channels at the end here called filter and scene. And if we check out the appendix from the manual, you can see that the filter channel has a number of slots, as we call them. Each slot is 4 DMX steps and lets you choose layer set 1 to 64. And this is probably a typo. These days we call layer sets filters. So this one here is correct, but here it still says layer set. So we can choose which filter is active. We can also choose which scene is active because we have a choice of 64 scenes. So I want to set this up as well and show you because we've had a lot of questions about this bit as well. Admittedly, it is a little bit finicky. We never quite expected those features to catch on as they did. So the view is patched on channel 41. We have changed to the extended mode, which means we can choose filters and scenes. But how does that work? Well, if we go to the filters, there is a property here called DMX control slot. These are all set to 0 initially, which means they are inaccessible from the camera. But I could assign these as, say, 1, 2, 3. This corresponds to the first 3 slots of the filter channel. So I will now be able to choose between these 3 filters from the lighting console. I also have 2 scenes, one with and one without the scenery. So let's put the first scene on slot 1 and the second scene on slot 2 and move into the lighting console. Now at this point, I think I'm simply going to delete that fixture. Delete, yes, and patch a new camera in extended mode. There we go. And move into the programmer. So here, we've pretty much got the same options as before, so let's move the camera somewhere meaningful. But we have 2 new options that have appeared here now, and these are the layer and scene parameters. So with the layer parameter, I can now jump between the 3 filters I had. And actually, in the third filter, if we remove some things here, let's see. There we've removed some fixture layers. So you can see a clear difference as we are jumping between these 3 different layers now by selecting them from the console. And we also had 2 different scenes. So I will use the scene parameter here in the console where I can jump It's pretty hard to see for you, I reckon, but it says 1 or 2 here in the middle of the parameter. So I can switch between these two scenes that I've set up in my design. So you can see that there is a pretty wide range of controllability of the cameras from your lighting console that you can use to save time as you are programming the show. Just as with the field of view, ambient lighting, and exposure, the filter and scene selection does not record into snapshots. So these are only possible to switch live from the lighting console. You cannot include such transitions in these snapshots. The way to do that would be to use motion fixtures and to control scenery using DMX. So if you want to move objects in and out of stage as part of the snapshots, then you need to patch the scenery to DMX. So if we return to the manual and scroll down beyond the camera DMX tables, we discover some more things that you can patch to DMX. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you have the ability of patching the smoke boxes, so you can control the density and variation of smoke from DMX. And remember, in Capture, you can set up 5 individual smoke boxes, so you might have one for low-lying fog, you might have one for the fog machines on stage, you might have one for haze in the auditorium, and you can patch all of these individually and control them over DMX. We also have the video players in the Media tab, which we can program using DMX to trigger playback and selection of media using DMX. And finally, we have the DMX movers and the DMX rotators, which we can use to move and rotate scenery in the design. I had originally planned to show you this, but we are running a bit tight on time. If you do have questions, please do start shooting them at me, so I have some time to answer them. At the moment, I don't seem to have any. But what I wanted to say was that we do have a separate tutorial on how to move scenery with DMX. It is part of the tutorial series on YouTube. So if you scroll down on the documentation page, if you scroll down beyond the manual, you will see that we've added all of these direct links to our YouTube channel where you can watch various tutorials about things, including the one with the cow and the UFO, where I go through and show you how to move scenery and how to rotate scenery using DMX. So if you want to see more about that, then take a look at that on our YouTube page. It does seem like I have a question here. Would it be possible to have the ambient light level set to automatically say 50%? This is something that I always need to adjust when I switch to live. So in Capture, I believe in a new project file, the default setting of ambient for a live view is 0%. We have seen that different users have very different preferences in terms of what this should be. There is no way of configuring that manually to set your own preference at the moment, but what I would want to show you is that in the control pane, we have added a slider for the ambient lighting level to give you easier access to this setting when you might not have the views setting up in the design tab at the moment. So a bit of a workaround, but it is a good suggestion, and we will see maybe if we can add it more configurable indeed. Peter is asking whether there is a way to import FBX or animated FBX. The answer is no, but there are converters from FBX to GLTF, which should work pretty flawlessly, I think. We do not support any animated 3D assets at this point, so there's no way of getting the animations into Capture. But the assets as such, with all their materials, would be possible to import using a converter without problems. Another question is whether the DMX controllable cameras are available in all versions of Capture, and they are definitely available in the Solo, Duet, Quartet, Symphony editions. I'm a little bit uncertain about the Student edition, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure it's available there too, because it's not a library item. I think even in the Student edition you can patch a camera to DMX. Yeah, I feel quite confident at the moment. I hope I'm right this time. Let's see if we have something more incoming here. I think we are reaching the end, so unless we have something more dropping in right now, I think we are going to be closing the webcast for today. So thank you all for watching. I hope I've managed to show you something you didn't know before. We look forward to being back with another webcast in a month, which is going to be our Christmas special. This is going to be something special indeed, and you don't want to miss that. There is going to be some surprises, maybe a few Christmas gifts or whatnot, so make sure not to miss that. Thank you again for watching, and see you soon again.